There are a ton of Ibex 450 reviews out there, but none of them focus in on our singular, most important factor here at MotoCamp Nerd, which is, unsurprisingly, motorcycle camping. Our Will It MotoCamp series is our narrow-minded evaluation of bikes focused on 7 categories that we feel like are most important to motorcycle camping and travel. Streetability, dirtability, luggage options, comfort and features, fuel range, maintenance and reliability, and aftermarket parts. After factoring in those 7 things, we also give an overall score about how we feel about the bike in terms of Will It MotoCamp. I've been riding and camping off of this Ibex for about 1,000 miles now, and I feel like I'm finally ready to answer the most important question: will it MotoCamp? First up, streetability. For me, a 5 out of 5 in this category is like a Honda Goldwing. A mobile couch so comfortable you can fall asleep, and so feature-rich that it can drive itself when you do. 4 out of 5 for me is like a Tiger 900 or an Africa Twin. On that scale, the Ibex for me is a 3. It's not as comfortable or effortless to ride on the road as those bigger bikes, but it's certainly more comfortable than a dual sport. It's working hard at 75, but it can do it all day. There is some buffeting coming off the sides of the windscreen, but the up and down adjustability is super nice to have. Basically, the Ibex is average on the highway and very fun around town. 3 out of 5. For dirtability, I give it a 4 out of 5. I debated whether to go with a 3 or a 4 here. It might be a 3.5, but we don't do half points, so I round it up to 4. The fully adjustable suspension is what pushes it up for me. If you know how to set that up, you can get a lot more off-road capability out of this thing than you can similar bikes without that feature. A good rider can do a ton with this relatively lightweight adventure bike. At 430 pounds, it's not a featherweight, but it is one of the lightest ADV bikes out there. Having ridden it in the sand and rocks in Death Valley, I can say you definitely can tell the difference between this and most of the other ADV bikes I've ridden. Even the Himalayan 450, which is the same weight on paper, feels much heavier than this bike for some reason. If I'm looking at a bunch of technical riding and I have to choose between this bike and my 790, I'm going Ibex every time. That is the difference for me. It reminds me a lot more of my CRF 300L Rally off-road than any of the other big bikes that I've ridden. It does pretty well. That's a 4 out of 5. I admit that a 4 out of 5 is a bold claim here, but for my level of riding, this thing is very capable. More skilled riders tackling harder terrain might disagree, but for a guy like me whose skills ceiling tops out at BDR expert sections, it's great. In terms of luggage options, I give it a 4 out of 5. It's compatible with most luggage options out there. With pannier racks, you can run hard or soft panniers easily. The OEM rear platform has lots of tie-down points for a duffel bag or a tail bag, and the frame rails here on the front are super easy to get to mount a tank bag. Rackless luggage will also work well with a little bit of a caveat. You'll have to remove the rear grab handles or replace the rear rack entirely, like I've done with the Outback Motortech rack here, to make most rackless luggage work, because the stock rear grab handles are too wide for most rackless luggage. They should be pretty easy to just remove and replace with spacers. I've done that on a ton of bikes. So it's not like a deal breaker, but just be aware those grab handles do make a lot of rackless luggage not fit in stock form. So that's why I give it a 4 out of 5. It's pretty versatile, but there is a little bit of a pain in the ass depending on what kind of luggage you're hoping to run. My 790 was exactly the same way. In terms of comfort and features, I give it a 4 out of 5. My favorite feature on the Ibex is right here, this button. This is the off-road mode on and off button. You just hold it down for like 3 seconds and it'll switch off the ABS and traction control on the fly. You just push it one more time, they come back on. No stopping at the beginning of the trail and fiddling with menus, none of that. That is huge for me. My 790 doesn't have that. My Norden didn't have that. The Himalayan kind of has that. The Africa Twin I had required multiple button presses. So in terms of just being able to just keep riding, this is a massive feature for me as a person who frequently transitions from on to off-road and back. The screen is gorgeous and very easy to read even when it's super bright out. Stock seat is very comfortable. It's comfortable enough. A bike people often compare this to is the Himalayan 450, right? That came out about the same time. They're the same size. I gave the Himalayan a 3 out of 5 in this category. Why is the Ibex a 4? Why is it better? Windscreen's adjustable. It isn't on the Himalayan. It comes with all foldable foot controls standard. Suspension is adjustable. Just all of that and the overall kind of fit and finish and extra kind of features they threw in push it up for me to a 4. The low seat height makes this bike super accessible. The stock linkage has 2 positions so that you can lower it if you need to, if you're a shorter rider. No modification necessary. It's not perfect. The seating position can be cramped for taller riders, and it's a little bit buzzy on the freeway. It'll do 75, but it's definitely working hard. So it's not a perfectly comfortable bike. It's not super feature rich like some of the most expensive bikes out there. So for me, it's a 4 out of 5. Fuel range, it's a 4 out of 5. This is a 4.6 gallon tank at about 50 miles miles to the gallon, you're going to get 200-ish miles before you need to stop to find a gas station. I like to stop about that often anyway. That's 3+ hours of riding on the highway. So it's a decent fuel range. It's not spectacular. It's not amazing. It's not a GS adventure. It is a decent sized fuel tank. So I give it a 4 out of 5. Maintenance. This is an interesting one. So oil and filter changes are every 3,000 miles. That's pretty standard, pretty average. Oil changes are pretty easy, except you have to remove the skid plate, but that's pretty standard on any adventure bike. Valve checks are every 24,000 miles, and the air filter, it says clean at 3,000 miles and replace at 12,000 miles, but it's just a paper filter, so why wouldn't you just replace it? I don't know, I just replace it every 3,000 miles. One thing I really like about this bike is that air filter is super easy to get to. It is right under the seat, 2 bolts, and it's out. And then slide it right back in. The battery is right under this seat too. No removing side panels, lifting the tank, any of that stuff. So maintenance is pretty easy on this bike. Everything is kind of easy to get to, so it feels kind of well thought out that way. The bike has been super easy for me to work on so far, my own incompetence notwithstanding. I'm giving it a 4 because reliability is a question mark. We just don't know how it's going to do long term yet. I have seen some pretty aggressive testing, some pretty long mileage testing in Europe and in Canada because they've had this bike longer than us, but it's not a Honda, so I'm giving it a 4 out of 5 in reliability and maintenance. Aftermarket parts, I give it a 4 out of 5 as well. CFMOTO has a full line of aftermarket parts and accessories available, and they're good quality and reasonably well priced. I know because they sent me most of them, including the crash bars and the foot pegs and the taller windscreen and everything else that you see here. Third-party manufacturers are also coming on board with a ton of stuff. Like I said, it's already been out for a year in Europe and Canada, so there's a big head start there. It's not brand new. Outback Motor Tech has a ton of stuff. I got T-Rex has got a bunch of stuff. AXP is already making a plastic skid plate. So there's a lot of aftermarket accessories out there. Tons of stuff to kind of customize it the way you want, and more coming out every day. Big question mark there is with all of the tariff turmoil and all of that, will you be able to get replacement parts from China? I don't know. That seems to change every day. So I'm just going to assume you'll be able to and give it a 4 out of 5. If it suddenly became impossible to get replacement parts, well, then that would probably go down to a 3 or a 2. But for now, it's easy enough. 4 out of 5. So overall, what do I give the CFMOTO Ibex 450 in terms of camping and traveling? Well, for me, it's a 4 out of 5, which is not shocking considering it got a 4 in almost every category. I'm an adventure and dual sport rider, and sort of the pinnacle of that kind of riding is a multi-day BDR riding and camping trip. So when I do these Will It MotoCamp reviews, that's kind of the overall criteria I evaluate bikes against. A BDR is a great test of a bike because it incorporates all the criteria we've talked about. Bikes have to be comfortable on the street so you can get to the BDR. The closest one for me is Oregon, and the start of it is 6 hours away, so that's kind of the minimum, while also being capable enough to ride the 500 to 1,200 miles of off pavement on the route. They have to be tough enough to make it through the whole trip and be able to carry your camping gear and luggage the whole way. Would I do a BDR on this bike? Absolutely. I absolutely would. In fact, right now, I'm planning on doing Idaho on it later this year. It's not as comfortable as my 790 on the highway sections before and after, but I'd rather be on this bike when I'm off the road. It's a good balance of just comfortable enough on the highway while being reasonably capable and confidence-inspiring when you hit the dirt. I've seen enough longer-term reviews and tests from our European and Canadian friends to feel reasonably confident that this bike can handle what a trip like that will throw at it without breaking down. It makes compromises and sacrifices just like any other ADV bike, but I'm very happy with the overall balance here, and I like this bike a lot so far. With that in mind, it's a 4 out of 5 for me overall. Make sure that you check out the other entries in the Will It MotoCamp series here on the channel. I did the CRF 300L Rally. I did the Himalayan 450, especially if you're cross-shopping those two bikes. It might be good to get those two side-by-side opinions, and make sure that you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future entries in the Will It MotoCamp series. If you're in the market for motorcycle camping and riding gear, make sure you check out MotoCampNerd.com. There you'll find the world's most carefully curated selection of motorcycle camping gear, as well as the riding gear and luggage you'll need to make your next two-wheeled adventure a complete success. MotoCamp Nerd has all the gear you need so you can pack small and camp easy.